Hi everyone and welcome to another video after a while. I'm sorry for not posting, I had some, life going on. I decided to record a guide for achieving an iron cross because there are not many of those and I think it's a very specific thing to talk about. So let's get into it. The first step for achieving an iron cross is definitely to make sure you don't injure yourself. You do this by incorporating lower intensity exercises for the muscles in your rotator cuff, which is the part that gets injured the most often, to your usual training program. Also, you probably should not be training for an iron cross if you can do at least some weighted pull-ups, weighted dips, and obviously a ring support hold. And lastly, if you already have a straddle planche or even a full planche and a front lever before starting to train for iron cross, you won't have much issues with the iron cross unless you really are not careful. So basically having good straight arm strength will help you a lot. I am saying this because too many people rush the process. They want to go straight into specificity without having any prerequisite. And iron cross simply isn't a skill where you can get away with that comfortably. Countless athletes have injured themselves training for the cross, even strong athletes, right? So don't be one of them. Step number one is simply just conditioning. In my opinion, it should not be skipped. It consists of spending time on the rings, port hold, stuff like that, and strengthening your rotator cuff muscles. Think about it as strengthening your shoulder joint. Here are some exercises. Ring support hold. So no matter how strong you are, no matter how much you can bench press, or even how many handstand push-ups you can do, first time getting on the rings will be awkward. This static exercise will get you a bit more used to it because it's specific, right? Make sure to turn out the rings and lock out the elbow. That is the hardest part of the exercise, but it's absolutely crucial. This will help you to condition your distal bicep tendon and your pecs for the cross. Hold for 2 to 4 sets of 15 to 30 seconds. If ring support hold is too hard, you can always do it in a push-up position, but make sure to turn out the rings and lock out the elbow. Next, internal and external rotations. These exercises always seem unnecessary and sketchy until you start feeling pain in your deep parts of your shoulder. Internal rotations strengthen your subscap and external rotations strengthen your infraspinatus and teres minor. These are rotator cuff muscles that are responsible for, obviously, rotations. Why is this important? Because depending on how you do your cross, with internal rotations or external rotations, usually gymnasts do it with bit internal rotation because they are stronger in the anterior chain, and athletes who are very strong at, let's say, Victorian and front lever stuff in general, they will usually be externally rotated. In any case, some of these muscles will carry more load and they're very small and really not very trained muscles, and that's why I strongly suggest to do 2 sets of 12 to 15 reps for each arm a few times per week before starting to train iron cross or while you're training for an iron cross. Next, Bulgarian dips. You can do these if you like them, they are definitely useful. The main benefit for the cross with these is the increased stability demand in the shoulder joint. They are pretty hard, but if you can do like 5 of these, you're golden. Next, banded cross pulls. These will work exactly the same musculature as the cross, just of course a lot lighter. Still, I would recommend using a band that you can do 10 to 15 reps with. So it's not really a light band, it still has some tension, still kind of trains the muscles, conditions them. Pick some of these exercises and do them around 2 to 3 times per week. At the end of your session, prepare your shoulders and bicep tendon a little bit more. Of course, you don't really have to spend, time specifically conditioning for an iron cross, but I would just recommend. Step 2 is actually starting to train your cross. The question is, how can you know when you can start training the cross? For most people, I would say it's when you can comfortably hold the turn out ring position, do a couple dips, maybe 5 to 10 with a lockout, and maybe even do a couple reps of Bulgarian ring dips. That's solid level. There are 2 main ways to practice an iron cross. First one is to use bands. Second one is to use strap assistance, in other words, leverage assistance. I'm sure many of you wonder which one is better. So both are scalable. Bands allow you to practice how to engage a good false grip, while straps necessarily don't do that. 1+ for the bands. Bands also allow you to feel the movement exactly as it is, but under less load. Straps do a good job of that as well, except because the arm gets shortened and the point of force gets closer to the attachment front of the bicep tendon on the radial bone, the load that's imposed on the bicep tendon becomes almost completely insufficient to stimulate it to make it stronger. However, it does a pretty good job at strengthening your pectoralis muscles and rotator cuff muscles, so it's not a terrible choice, right? In any case, I would recommend starting with feet assisted low iron cross holds for sets of 10 seconds or so. This is plenty specific. It's a good opportunity to really practice your false grip and scapular positioning, and I think it's one of the best progressions. When grabbing the false grip, really try to put as much of your hand in there. I know that's something that gymnasts usually get deductions for. We are not gymnasts. First learn it with good false grip, then later, if you want to be perfect, you can decrease the amount of false grip. When it comes to scapular activation, scapula has 4 main movements. It's protraction, retraction, elevation, and depression. In iron cross, they should ideally be neutral and elevated. You can really only see iron cross with protraction in some really specific gymnasts, sometimes Yuri Van Gelder, and people who are overall very strong at protraction. They've done a lot of planche work and then they attempt an iron cross for the first time, like me. On the other hand, retraction in iron cross can be seen very rarely, and it's only just a slight retraction. It's usually people who are very strong at Victorian cross and they simply have extraordinarily insanely developed posterior delts and the long head of the triceps, as well as the lats. Usually they also never train for the iron cross, so it's intuitive for them to compensate with suboptimal activations and honestly almost always bending their arms. When it comes to elevation or depression, elevation simply makes it easier because of the leverage. If we look at some pictures of top gymnasts, they are all somewhat elevated in their scapulas, just like me if you look closely. At this point, I would start training iron cross maybe at the middle of the sessions 2 times per week. Really not needed to do any more than twice per week. You can, you don't need to. There is also no need to separate an entire day for training an iron cross. You can easily train 2 to 3 skills in 1 training sessions or more if you don't go all out on them, which you shouldn't, so that's really not an issue. Let me give you an example. Day 1, planche and front lever. Day 3, planche, iron cross. Day 4, front lever, impossible dip, kind of weird, but whatever. Day 6, planche, front lever, iron cross. 4-day week split, plenty of volume, plenty of rest, plenty of volume to progress in both planche, front lever, and iron cross. And also impossible dip, right? On days you train the iron cross, you can do 3 to 4 sets of 8 to 10 feet assisted cross, plus some ring support holds on the rings, or dips. Of course, over time you add a bit of volume, maybe add some extra weight, progressive overload. And once again, these are just examples. So this was how I would introduce iron cross into my training. I hope you got the idea. Step 3 is to work with bands until you reach the iron cross, so getting real specific. Once you've gotten plenty of conditioning and comfort in the range of motion of the cross, I would recommend training specific isometric holds with sets of 6 to 12 seconds. You don't want to be doing too many attempts or doing sets of 3, real heavy sets of 3, because it's honestly unsustainable and for most people not the way to get better. For some really gifted ones this could work, but most people just are not that. General range for building strength is sets of 3 to 6 reps. And if we convert that into seconds, it will be somewhere around 6 to 12 seconds. How did I develop such logic? Well, for a lift to be considered valid, it's necessary to perform 1 rep. For a hold to be considered valid, it's necessary to hold it for 2 seconds. And that's pretty much it, the whole logic. So yeah, 6 to 12 seconds, plenty heavy to be specific to our goal, but also plenty light to be sustainable over the course of the weeks without getting destroyed. So pick a band that allows you to do just that. Maybe your initial level will be 4 sets of 8 seconds with 15 kg band. This is awesome. From here on, you want to focus on building volume with the current progression. So if starting point is 4 sets of 8 seconds with 15 kg band, try building up to 3 sets of 10 with the same band. Then you could drop the assistance to around 8 to 10 kgs and do the same thing starting from the main beginning. So sets of 6 to 8, for example. Deload every 4 to 6 weeks, usually a good idea. If you train pretty hard, you will need it. Once again, it's not necessary to train iron cross more than twice per week. You can do more if you prefer to do very low volume per session, but then you also have to frequently warm up, which when done for the cross with all the rotations and bullshits, it can take quite a while and it's really boring, which usually leads to not doing it, and that leads to injuries very quickly. So yeah, my honest recommendation for iron cross, 2 times per week. Usually, once you can hold an element for around 8 to 10 seconds with a light band, you will likely be able to hold real element for 2 to 4 seconds, which is your goal. goal. So keep that in mind. That's it for the video, guys. Thank you a lot for watching, and I hope you will have an actual progress and benefit to your training if you implement this video. See you next time.